Investing can be a tricky and intimidating endeavor, but with the right tools and understanding of key metrics, anyone can become a savvy investor. One of the most important metrics to understand is the expense ratio. The expense ratio is a measure of how much of an investment's total return is eaten up by fees and costs. In this video, we will provide a thorough breakdown of expense ratios and explain why this key metric should be top of mind for all investors. Defining an expense ratio. An expense ratio, also known as the management expense ratio, is a fee that is charged to investors by a fund or investment company to cover the costs of managing the investment portfolio. The fee is expressed as a percentage of the fund's total assets under management and is deducted from the fund's returns. For example, if a fund has an expense ratio of 1% and it generates a return of 5%, the net return to the investor would be 4%. The expense ratio covers various expenses associated with managing the fund, such as investment advisory fees, administrative expenses, custodial fees, and other operational expenses. These expenses can include research and analysis of investments, marketing and distribution costs, legal and compliance fees, and other costs incurred in the management of the fund. Expense ratios are disclosed in the fund's prospectus, which is a document that provides information about the fund, its objectives, risks, and fees. Investors should always review the expense ratio before investing in a fund, as it can impact their returns over time. It's important to note that some investment products may have different expense ratios depending on the share class selected. Overall, understanding what an expense ratio is and how it's calculated is a crucial part of investing. Investors should be aware of the expenses associated with the investment product they are interested in, as it can help them make informed decisions about their investment strategy. Why expense ratios are important. Expense ratios are an important metric that investors should pay attention to. They provide information about the cost of owning an investment, which can have a significant impact on overall returns. A higher expense ratio means more money is being paid out to cover costs such as management fees, administrative expenses, and operating expenses. This reduces the overall return on the investment. In contrast, a lower expense ratio means that more of the investor's money is being invested, potentially leading to higher returns. Another reason expense ratios are important is that they are a reflection of the quality of the investment. Generally speaking, actively managed funds tend to have higher expense ratios compared to passively managed funds, such as index funds and ETFs. This is because actively managed funds require more resources to analyze and make investment decisions. However, higher expense ratios don't always equate to better returns. Overall, paying close attention to expense ratios is essential for any investor looking to maximize returns and build a profitable investment portfolio. By understanding the cost of owning an investment, investors can make informed decisions about where to invest their money. How to use expense ratios. Once you understand what an expense ratio is and why it's important, it's essential to know how to use it. Here are a few ways to make the most of this key metric. 1. Compare funds. When you're evaluating different mutual funds or exchange-traded funds, their expense ratios should be a primary factor to consider. You can use expense ratios to compare funds with similar investment strategies to find the one with the lowest costs. Lower expenses often translate to higher returns over time. 2. Monitor portfolio performance. If you're managing your own investment portfolio, you should be checking your expense ratios regularly to see how they affect your returns. As your portfolio grows, it's common for expenses to increase. You may need to adjust your holdings to keep your expense ratios in check. 3. Use in conjunction with other metrics. Expense ratios are one factor in determining whether a fund is a good investment, but they aren't the only one. You should also look at other metrics like past performance, fund manager experience, and the fund's investment strategy. Use all of these factors together to make informed investment decisions. 4. Check for hidden fees. Some funds may have expense ratios that appear low at first glance, but they could also have additional hidden fees that can eat into your returns. Be sure to read the fund prospectus carefully and look for any other fees or charges that could be lurking. In short, expense ratios are an essential tool for any investor looking to make informed investment decisions. By understanding what they are, why they matter, and how to use them, you can take steps to minimize your costs and maximize your returns over time. Factors that affect expense ratios. While expense ratios may seem like a straightforward metric, there are several factors that can impact how they are calculated. Some of the most common factors that affect expense ratios include 1. Investment style. Different investment styles, such as actively managed funds versus index funds, can have different expense ratios. Active funds tend to have higher expenses because they require more research and analysis, while index funds tend to have lower expenses because they simply track a benchmark index. 2. Fund size. The size of a fund can impact its expense ratio because smaller funds may have higher expenses relative to their assets under management. This is because the fixed costs of managing a fund, such as legal and administrative fees, are spread over a smaller pool of assets. 3. Asset class. The type of asset a fund invests in can impact its expense ratio. For example, equity funds tend to have higher expense ratios than fixed income funds because stocks are generally considered to be riskier investments and require more research. 4. Fund company. Different fund companies may have different expense ratios, even for similar types of funds. This can be due to differences in management fees, marketing costs, or other factors that vary between companies. 5. Share class. Some funds offer different share classes that have different expense ratios. For example, a fund may offer an institutional share class with a lower expense ratio for large investors, and a retail share class with a higher expense ratio for smaller investors. Understanding these factors can help investors choose funds with expense ratios that align with their investment goals and risk tolerance. By paying attention to expense ratios, investors can keep more of their returns and avoid overpaying for investment management. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from me again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go. Thanks for watching.